it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 616th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf.
Hello.
So we're ready to go. This is a compilation of news on energy and climate change that I've captured, put on my blog, geoharvey.com, and there's 21 articles here. I added a picture that you didn't see because I just added it today to explain another picture. It's one of those things. Anyway, you can go to my blog, geoharvey.com. You can click on the calendar and look for the date that we will give you, and you can find these stories there, or you can go to the website below, which is a tiny URL website, Energy Week 616 actually, and that will take you to the website that has just the stuff that we're talking about, so it's pretty easy to follow. Okay, we're starting on the Thursday, the 13th of March, and we're ending, today being the 20th, we're ending on the 19th of March, which is a Wednesday. And we're starting with a picture of wind turbines, wind energy, and this is from ABC News. And I'm reading the titles here because somebody knocked poor Nancy over and stole her notes. Now, we would have caught the rascal, but the fact is he fed the notes to his dog before we can do it. Okay. Why the Trump administration is wrong about an energy crisis in the United States. The Trump administration is attempting to push the idea of a looming energy crisis in the United States, but its claims couldn't be further from reality. According to several experts who talked with ABC News, there isn't even the slightest hint of an energy crisis in this country. This is it follows a pattern. The President of the United States declared an energy crisis because it gave him more power.
Yep.
So he's declaring crises where they don't exist because every one of them gives him more power.
Yeah.
And we have courts that are stopping him and getting upset when he ignores their orders. And I don't know where this is going to end, but I don't think it's going to end well.
He's a PR machine. I mean, that's just what he does. He just messes. He just gets this, switch this around,
yeah,
it up. That's his talent.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think that he really understands anything about the Constitution, the law, or the organization of the federal government. After being president for 4 years.
I know. I agree with you. I know.
All right, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
This is a picture that I went out and got because I didn't like the picture at ABC News or because it wasn't useful. And not being useful is very often just what that means is that it's copyrighted, and I don't want to post things that there are people who repost my my blog, and I just give them permission to repost it, and they repost the pictures. And if they repost pictures that are copyrighted, in my case, it's okay because I don't make money on these things. It's not commercial use. But in their case, they might make money on them, which means that somebody could go after them and say, I want $1 billion for that.
Yes.
And typically, pictures are worth about $15, but you know, they always want more than that. Mm-hmm. Okay, the title for this comes from ABC News. NOAA braces for mass layoffs with concerns about vitally important weather services. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that's NOAA, NOAA, is preparing to lay off more than 1,000 workers as part of the Trump administration's mandate for agencies to prepare, quote, reductions in force, end quote, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you have an opinion on this, Nancy, and
Yeah.
I would like to know what it is.
There's a few things going on here, I think. One of them is when you cut people. Like, those are people's jobs, those are people's lives.
This has caused huge problems in the courts already.
Yeah.
They were cut for cause, according to the Trump administration. They just cut 1,000 people or whatever from one agency, every single one of them for cause, even though their reviews were incredibly positive.
Yep.
And it's like these people can't collect insurance, unemployment insurance. They can't use they have to answer. Have a question on the next job that they apply for? Have you ever been fired for cause? They have to answer yes. What cause? I don't know. But it potentially is really, really bad for them, aside from the fact that they have lost a job that they expected to go to and they just got an email.
Well, it's all so many people in Washington have lost their and these are folks that are this is my mound hill to stand on, which is just that they could have made more money in the private sector. Yes, they could make a lot more money in the private sector, but they decided to take less money and serve.
Yes.
And that, to me, is the thing that's lost here, because it's all of this, money. These are folks that went to school, dedicated themselves, and
wound up with student loan debt. Yeah. And wanted to serve the same way people serve in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And they should be praised for that. And I think that people don't really understand. I worked for about a year in a law firm in Washington, D.C., and a receptionist told me, this was in about the year 2000, so it was 25 years ago, a receptionist told me that she was considered very good at her job, and she told me how much money she was making. And my guess is that she, as a receptionist in a law firm, would be making $100,000 a year today, which in Washington, D.C. doesn't sound like all that much. In Brattleboro, Vermont, that sounds like a lot of money.
Yep.
But if she were working for the government, she wouldn't be making anywhere near that amount.
No. I mean, that would be the max probably, or depending on the role, right?
Yeah.
As receptionist, no, I don't think so.
I think she'd probably be half that.
Yeah, probably.
And these were, and we're going to be dealing with this more. These layoffs are going to come up again.
Yeah.
Let's go on.
Yeah.
We have a picture of a graph.
Yeah.
And an article from Clean Technica. And this graph is the cumulative U.S. battery capacity. So until batteries start being terminated, like federal workers, that graph is not going to go down. It's only going to go up. Mm-hmm. And I expect that it'll keep going up very fast. The title of the article is U.S. battery capacity increased 66% in 2024. The battery capacity increased 66%. So if we had 100 gigawatts, it would have been 160 gigawatts just from the change in 1 year. In the U.S., cumulative utility scale battery storage capacity exceeded 26 gigawatts in 2024, according to the January 2025 preliminary monthly electric generator inventory. Generators added 10.6 gigawatts of battery storage capacity in 2024, the second largest generating capacity addition after solar. So solar was first, batteries were second, wind power was third. It's amazing. And news came out today that in January, 98.4% of all power additions in the United States were solar, wind, and batteries. 98.4. That sounds like my body temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
exactly.
crazy. So you have anything to say about that?
No. No.
Okay.
No.
We are up to Friday, March 14th, and we have a picture, a very green picture. We have a very green picture. This is a picture of a substation installation. And I honestly don't know why everything is so green. But it is. This is from Renews, and the title is First Substation Installed at CVOW. The first substation for the 2,600 megawatt coastal Virginia offshore wind project is in place. Last November, Dominion Energy said the offshore substation foundations had been installed in the first installation season. The 2.6 gigawatt offshore wind farm is being built 27 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach. I
think this is so
exciting.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And I don't know, I don't think this is going to be stopped by the federal government. They kind of said that they weren't stopping offshore wind that was actually being installed. But they've driven a lot of people away from this country, and we will have an article about that, which I could just tell you the title of right now, but you know, we'll save it for better times. Okay, now we have a picture of a tower being made. This is from Renews. The title is Enercon Unveils Taller Towers. So they've worked it out so they can get taller towers. Enercon is developing additional and taller hybrid steel towers for its EP5 turbine. With the additional steel tower variants, the turbine portfolio will be expanded so Enercon can offer towers with high hub heights. High hub heights is, that's kind of Department of Redundancy department, worldwide. The technology has already proven itself in practice and is to be delivered as early as 2026. So they want the wind turbines to be higher so they catch wind better. And what they're doing here is they're adding sections of towers to make the tower taller. You know, originally they would put up a tower by bringing the tower to the site and using a huge, huge crane, unimaginably big crane, to just lift it into place. But now they're putting it up in sections. So, should I go on?
Yeah.
Okay. This is from Clean Technico. San Miguel Lignite Power Plant is the picture. Lignite is really dirty coal. Okay. The title of this is Breathe Deep, America. Carbon dioxide is good for you. So is soot. Energy Secretary Chris Wright is telling African leaders that burning coal is good for them because it worked so well for the United States 100 years ago. And the EPA Administrator, Lee Zeldin, proudly announced 31 separate actions to roll back restrictions on air and water pollution. Now, I'll bet you have an opinion on that.
Well, mostly just that Lee Zeldin was a failed Democratic or a failed candidate for New York governor and lost.
Okay.
So that's my comment.
But his political position is such that he gets rewarded anyway.
Right. They call that failing upwards.
Failing upwards. Okay, I'll remember that. It's something that I will never have an opportunity to do. I'm too old. When you're 78 years old and you fail upwards, you're going to heaven. Okay, this particular thing really, I was astonished when I read this.
Yes.
They want to dig more coal in the United States. They want to pump more oil in the United States. And where is it going to go? Well, in the United States, we're close to a glut in energy, and so they have to sell it abroad. So what do abroad? They go to Africa, and they tell the Africans, you got to have coal mines, you got to have oil wells, you got to have gas wells. Does that mean that the Africans are going to buy from us? I could comment on sanity or lack thereof.
Yeah. Well, there's facts and reality, and then there's what these folks said.
Wishful thinking, but this isn't even wishful thinking. They aren't telling the African leaders, buy coal from us. They're saying, dig your own. And why are they doing that?
So that they can continue on with their fossil fuel world.
I don't know. I want to make an observation here. The United States started moving away from coal in about 1905. And the reason I say that is because it was about 1905 that U.S. Navy ships were specified to have oil in them and not coal. And oil is much better for ships for a bunch of reasons, one of which is it can be pumped to the fireboxes, where coal has to be shoveled. And, you know.
There's a certain era of time, I think, of when I think of coal, and that is not recent times. It's very, like 100 years ago. That's what I think, or a bit further than that, a little further
120
than that.
years ago,
Yes.
the United States was when the coal industry was growing, even though the Navy was not using it. They're a small operation compared to everything. In 1925, there were about 850,000 coal miners in this country. The number today is more like 50,000.
Yeah.
It went down to about 35,000 under Donald Trump in his first term, because contrary to what he would have you believe, his effect on the coal miners was horrible.
He doesn't have perception also.
I think that's true. And now he is pushing coal.
Yes.
We haven't had a coal-fired electric facility come online, I think, in over 10 years. I don't know. I just don't know. And, you know, I don't know. We're up to Saturday, March 15th. We have a picture of the world. And the reason why it looks like the colors are so weird is because it was done in false colors. This particular picture came from NASA. The article came from ABC News. The title is Global Sea Level Rise Faster Than Expected in 2024, NASA analysts say. Climate change was a major driver in the unexpected sea level rise in 2024, according to new NASA analysis. Hopefully it won't be the last NASA analysis. Global sea levels rose 0.23 inches in 2024. That's almost a quarter of an inch in 1 year. Doesn't sound like much, but I'll get back to that. Satellite records show this compared to the predicted 0.17 inches, so it went up 0.06 of an inch farther. That was what was expected. If you have 1/4 of an inch a year, that means in 10 years you have 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches is not going to, that's not going to make any difference if you're just in ordinary times with waves and, splashing on the beach. It will erode some beaches, but not much. The thing is, we have bigger storms than we used to. And when the sea level is 1/4 of an inch higher, that means the highest seas are higher.
Yep.
Which means that, if some nuclear power plant would have had its facility 1/4 of an inch, with 1/4 of an inch of freeway, it's going to have water spilling over it. That makes a big difference. It means, by the way, that United States Navy docks will not necessarily work anymore because the water is too high at high tide. It means that the water for high tide in Miami during the so-called sunny day flooding will flood worse. And it just means that instead of having maybe 20 days of sunny day flooding a year, you might have 22. All of this costs money, because of the damage that's being done.
Yeah, but here's another thing to think about here, which is what I was thinking was, NASA, they're probably not going to defund NASA. So because now all we have is NASA, because NOAA, they're just cutting the legs off NOAA. So yeah, of course we can only have NASA images. We're only going to have NASA images. When you're having more and more storms and we don't have any way of learning about them, that makes it worse for people because they can't find information about what's happening in their community.
Or the information they can find is unreliable.
Right, unreliable information.
And we're going to go to a story next, which is about NOAA, as a matter of fact. And let's do that.
Yep.
This is the Mauna Loa Observatory.
Oh, yeah.
Every year, every day, every hour, this observatory is measuring the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. This is from a publication called Ground Report. The title is Trump Plans to Shut Down a Climate Research Facility That Tracks Emissions. The Trump administration plans to cancel its lease for a government laboratory in Hilo, Hawaii, crucial for tracking rising greenhouse gas levels. The Global Monitoring Laboratory helps maintain the Mauna Loa Observatory, a key site for monitoring carbon dioxide levels. So maybe they couldn't fire all the scientists. So what do? They cancel the lease on the observatory instead.
Let's just hide the reality from us.
Exactly. They want to hide the reality for as long as possible. And that tells you a crucial difference between the Trump administration and, you pick your administration in the past. Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, just pick. Doesn't matter. The Trump administration is saying that there is no climate change or it doesn't matter.
Yep.
There is climate change and it is getting worse. And at some point, and I will guess that it will be in the very near future, people who are currently supporting that approach will be livid because it's affecting them.
Yeah.
People who live along beaches in Florida are going to say, wait a minute, we didn't buy this house so that it could be wrecked by a storm. Or better yet, wait a minute, we didn't buy this house to have our mortgage called in because we can't get insurance on it.
Yes, exactly. exactly. Who's, and what you were mentioning earlier, I mean, honestly, who's going to pay for all of this destruction?
Yeah. Who is going to pay for the destruction? What is Mar-a-Lago worth? Well, Donald Trump says it's worth over $1 billion.
Yeah, okay.
How many billions of dollars is he saving by firing people from NOAA and NASA? Well,
He's not saving, he's costing.
He's costing. That's costing a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, before I go on, continuous carbon dioxide measurements began in March of 1958 under the direction of Charles David Keeling from the Scripps Institute of Oceanography. His measures produced the Keeling curve. And I have a picture of the Keeling curve. There it is. Let's put that up. The Keeling curve is a curve that shows the increases and decreases that inset what looks like almost a sine wave is the increase and decrease of carbon dioxide in the air during the course of a year.
Right.
And there are diurnal changes that happen along this, but they're not shown here. This is just months. The dots on the curve are months. And each of those funny ziggies in the line that you see there is one of those changes. Now, the line, the overall line is, as you can see, is rising at increasing speed.
Yes.
And that's something that we actually have to reverse.
Yeah.
And right now, this country is doing, as a nation, basically nothing to reverse it. Now, as a nation, we have got organizations, states, cities, banks, manufacturing concerns. A lot of people are putting effort into reversing that without any funding from the federal government. Yeah. But, you know, we've got reasons to be grateful. Anyway, that when we talk about the Keeling curve, that's a picture of the Keeling curve. Okay. We have a picture of Paris. I was in Paris once, 1962.
Ooh.
And it looked just exactly like that. Although I didn't see it from that altitude. Okay, we have the title of this story, which comes from Clean Technica, is France prepares for 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. While Chris Wright, the U.S. Energy Secretary, is telling people that global heating doesn't even make his top 10 list of things to worry about, but France unveiled a climate adaptation plan based on the assumption that the average temperature on Earth will spike by as much as 4 degrees Celsius, which is more than 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Just imagine the coldest night in the winter becomes 7 degrees warmer. The hottest day in the summer is 7 degrees warmer. The coldest night in the winter isn't going to be 7 degrees under this. It's going to be more like 10. And the hottest day in the summer isn't going to be 7 degrees. It's possibly going to be 6 or 5. But the reason why we have Lyme disease in Vermont is because the winters are warmer. When I was living across the river in Winchester as a kid in 1960, whatever, the temperatures in the winter would go down to 30 below. I haven't seen a temperature below 10 below since I moved to Brattleboro, which was more than 21 years ago. The Brattleboro was in agricultural hardiness zone 4. Now, School Street separates hardiness zone 5 from hardiness zone 6.
Interesting. Okay.
And, you know, we've got peach trees. There's a pawpaw tree growing across the street. Where do pawpaws grow? Virginia.
Yeah.
They don't grow in Brattleboro. Oh, but they do. Well, so do deer ticks that
Yep.
carry Lyme disease. And by the way, don't blame deer. Bambi didn't do it. The primary vector for deer ticks is mice. Yeah. Mice get Lyme disease. We have, do you know about moose?
Tell me about moose.
There is a thing called a winter tick or a moose tick. A fully engorged adult female moose tick is about the size of a grape.
Oh.
And moose have been found dead with as many as 70,000 of these things on them. And according to a person I interviewed who was in the New Hampshire Fish and Game, about 85% of moose calves die in the first year because of loss of blood to moose ticks. This, you want to go hunting for moose in New Hampshire? It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. I've actually been wondering why I haven't seen a moose.
I don't know. I saw a moose in New Hampshire crossing the road.
Yeah.
But, I saw a bear in Brattleboro.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a different animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moose don't know how to groom themselves for ticks. Okay, we're way behind now.
Yes.
We have to go on. Did we finish? This article that we just did says that the U.S. is increasing carbon dioxide emissions to match French expectations. Okay, let's get away from that. Oilprice.com, which despite its name does not necessarily support fossil fuels, had the next piece, which is a renewable energy represented by renewable energy in India. Thomas Lloyd Group, by the way, is an Indian company, despite the fact that the name is Welsh. India strives for 500 gigawatts non-fossil power by 2030. 2030 is only 5 years away. Actually, it's less than that.
Less than that, yeah.
They want to have 500 gigawatts. Now, what's a gigawatt? It's approximately the amount of electricity you get out of a good-sized nuclear power plant. Okay. Renewable energy doesn't produce as much as a nuclear power plant, so 500 gigawatts isn't 500 nuclear plants. It's more like 250, maybe? I don't know. It depends upon how much of it is wind, because wind power actually gets closer to the capacity of nuclear power. India has been courting investment for its clean energy industry in an effort to shore up energy security and meet the nation's lofty decarbonization goals. But a report reveals that while India has offered up record-breaking clean energy tenders, they have been met with weak demand. Weak demand means the people who bid on items like this thing aren't really bidding on them as strongly as they would. But
so it's a capitalism problem.
It's a capitalism problem, yeah, and that's putting the nail right where it belongs. Okay, let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Here we have an oil processing facility in Nigeria, and this comes from oilprice.com. The title is "The Future of Nigeria's Energy Sector Remains Unclear." President Donald Trump and Energy Secretary Chris Wright pledged to support fossil fuel development across Africa. We mentioned that before. This should encourage countries like Nigeria to continue exploiting their oil and gas resources. Wright included coal, which he said would provide energy security while the temperature goes up.
While the people get sick.
While the people get sick. While they run out of water.
Yeah.
There's just so much wrong with that. It is infuriating. Okay. You got anything to say about that?
Nothing
that would do for television.
No.
Okay. We have a picture of a dam. This is from the American Public Power Association. And an item from ABC News, critics warn cuts at agencies overseeing U.S. dams could put public safety at risk. The Trump administration workforce cuts at federal agencies overseeing U.S. dams are threatening their ability to provide electricity, supply farmers with water, and protect communities from floods. Employees and industry experts warn. Nearly 400 people have lost their jobs. It makes me wonder, how many bridge inspectors have been fired?
Exactly. And
bridges are falling down. Dams, they get breached. What happens? Well, was it a company called, a community called Jonestown that got blown away in the 19th century? And a huge number of people died because this dam just broke. And if we don't have inspectors, that's one thing we can expect. And some of our dams that are in use are 100 years old. Okay, I'm going to move on, unless you've got something to say.
No.
Okay.
It doesn't even need to be said. It's obvious.
I honestly think that we have a government that is being run by people who are psychotic and who are not at all smart and who haven't done their homework.
Nope. Why would you do homework?
Because, this is something that's interesting. Intuitively obvious. Okay. We could say it's intuitively obvious and just go from there, which is what they're doing, but their intuition is not the same as yours and mine. It was intuitively obvious to Isabel that the world was flat. Right? It's intuitively obvious to anybody that the world is flat. You just go out and you look, I don't see a curve. But you go up into, we've got satellites in space, they take pictures, the world is round. How does that work? And I haven't heard anybody who's a flat earther who has an explanation for that is believable. Okay, I'm going to go on.
Yeah.
Oh yes, this is from the BBC. Solar farm could boost wildlife and reduce bills. An East Sussex village could soon have a solar farm that would generate clean energy and help residents reduce their bills, according to developers. Plan for a solar farm in Crowhurst. I've never been in Crowhurst, not at least that I am aware of. Would provide for annual needs of 2,500 homes for a year. The reason they talk about needs for the year is because the amount of production in a year is equal to the needs for a home for the year. But, obviously, that's a big balance. With surrounding land transformed into a nature reserve. And there it is. We have this picture of flowers growing under solar panels. Now, in a lot of places, sheep graze under solar panels, and people grow plants under solar panels. And some plants, I read about a type of pepper that would grow under solar panels and produce 3 times as much as it would growing out in the full sun. Some plants grow better under solar panels. So, okay. Now we go up to this picture, and this picture is interesting for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is this is the Wind Pace, and its sister ship, the Wind Peak, shows up also in today's show. This is from Clean Technica. China will help build U.S. offshore wind farms. I'm a little bit perturbed by that title because it isn't exactly true. China is sending an offshore wind construction vessel to the United States, and work continues apace for a major project that escaped the Trump chopping block so far. But word is that the Clean Air Act permit for the massive Atlantic Shores project was sent back to the EPA for further review. So we don't know what the story is with the Atlantic Shores project, and we don't know what to tell the people who got fired or will get fired if it's canceled, some of whom voted for Donald Trump, only to discover that they are losing their jobs.
And massive investment in these projects.
Massive investment, yeah.
Massive amounts of money.
Yeah.
That he's just
One of the
turning
things
away.
about commerce is that it is dependent on trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, people get burned all the time. You know, you buy a flower and it turns out that it is not what was described, and so the thing comes up and you say, wait a minute, that doesn't look like a tulip. Okay, that's a problem. But in this case, the United States has committed to building wind farms, and in some cases, they're not being built. So companies are losing a lot of money, and we will get back to that too.
And this is, yeah.
Do you have more for this?
The more is, okay, so U.S. wind farms are canceled, but Chinese created wind farm is fine. That sounds interesting to me in terms of what this administration is trying to do.
We'll cover that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that, as I said, is a ship. I call it a ship. It might not technically be a ship. But I think it should qualify. It's a huge vessel.
Yeah.
And its sister ship is coming up in a moment. Okay, we have from Asian Power let me put that up. This is a PVs on a Shenzhen auto plant. Now Shenzhen is the site of a big factory of BYD, and I would expect that maybe that's the BYD plant, but as you can see, the entire roof is covered with photovoltaics. This is from Asian Power. Town Gas Smart Energy's renewable unit boosts 2024 profit. Town Gas subsidiary, Town Gas Smart Energy Company Limited, has reported growth in 2024 thanks to its renewable energy business, whose net profit jumped fivefold. Did Donald Trump ever do that?
No.
To $479 million. As of 31 December 2024, Town Gas Smart Energy's total PV capacity is 2.3 gigawatts. Okay, we are up to Tuesday, March 18th, unless you've got something to say about that. Okay. Now, we have a picture of a Goldwind, Chinese made, by the way, 16 megawatt turbine, and an item from Clean Technica. The title is, "Don't worry, U.S. investors can still make offshore wind happen somewhere." They're not kidding, by the way. U.S. President Donald Trump did the domestic offshore wind industry no favors when he abruptly suspended federal offshore lease program upon taking office. But activity continues apace elsewhere around the globe. So the Chinese who made that wind turbine are still making lots of money.
Yes.
It's just that we're not employing people to take advantage of offshore wind power here.
No.
Wind investors can still invest abroad. And even if he told investors that they're not allowed to do that, the investors are not all American. Most of them are European or Chinese or whatever. Okay. Go on?
Yeah. Go on.
And here we have the Wind Peak, which is the sister ship of the Wind Pace, which we had a picture of from above. And it's being loaded up with stuff to take out to sea. This is from the BBC. And the title is Huge Ship, they call it a ship too, set to carry turbines to North Sea wind farm. The difference between a ship and a boat is that a ship has boats on it.
Oh.
Okay?
Oh.
At least I looked it up. That's what I got. I don't know that ship has, and I do know that they are often referred to as vessels. On the other hand, you can't see it in this picture, but that ship also has a heliport. This is from the BBC. The Wind Peak, a purpose-built vessel, has arrived in Hull, that's in the UK, to carry components across 80 miles of North Sea to the site of the Dogger Bank. Officials said the vessel, which is 162 meters long, that's 530 feet, and 60 meters wide, that's not small,
No.
was capable of transporting and installing 7 turbine sets per load. And these things are not small. This is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead
Yeah.
unless you've got
Yes.
more to say.
Go.
Okay, we have another item on NOAA, and we have a picture of a tornado by a NOAA photographer who might have got the axe, I don't know. This is from ABC News. NOAA's Storm Prediction Center facility among planned DOGE cuts. The Storm Prediction Center issues severe weather forecasts across the nation and identifies threat zones where dangerous thunderstorms and tornadoes could move through days in advance. So people have got plenty of time to get out of the way or get prepared or whatever they have to do. There is considerable question as to whether DOGE will close it. Now, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, actually, this is one of the articles that I brought with me today. So giving people information is great, and not giving people information, not great, especially when an impending accident or situation that is not going to do great things to their lives are about to happen.
I want to interrupt here. When President Trump is no longer president, he will not be immune from prosecution.
Correct.
And if he is withholding information that should be given that will save lives, the relatives of people who are killed can come after him for civil charges. And what does that mean? He's taking big chances on his own fortune if he has one. He might not.
Yeah, probably not. that's what I think. That's my hot take, is probably not.
Yeah. A judge, by the way, has declared Doge, however that's pronounced, to possibly to be unconstitutional.
Yes.
And almost certainly not authorized to cut items Congress put into the budget.
Exactly.
The budget authorized expenditure of money to support NOAA. The executive office, which means President Trump, is obliged to use that money.
The only body that sets budgets, it sets what we're going to spend on, is Congress.
According to the first article of the Constitution. And by doing this thing of saying you have to fire everybody, they're in violation of the Constitution. This is a mess. And I don't know how long this problem is going to last, but I don't think it's going to last very much longer. Donald Trump was told by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, don't mess around with judges. And Donald Trump basically said,
He can't help himself. He just wants to mess around with judges. That's
he wants, in my opinion, he wants to create chaos.
Yes.
He doesn't know what else to do. He wants to look like he's busy, so he's busy. He doesn't know what he's doing, so it's like a guy who's trying to clean the house by throwing every kind of cleaner on the floor.
Because he's never cleaned a house before.
Exactly. Should we go on? Okay.
Let's go.
We are up to Wednesday, March 19th, yesterday. We have a picture of a wind farm and an item from Renews. GE Vernova and RWE agree on a Texas deal. GE Vernova has entered into an agreement with RWE to provide 109 wind turbines. These things are not cheap. That's a lot of money. To power the Honey Mesquite Wind Farm in Glasscock County, Texas, and repower the Forest Creek Wind Farm in Big Spring, Texas. Deliveries of the 2.8 megawatt wind turbines for the two projects are to begin this year. So there you have it. I called people in Texas to ask them how they like living in a wind farm. And I was thinking about this. In Texas, they have wind farms that are bigger than counties. Somebody lives there. Do people all move away because of wind turbine syndrome? So I looked around and I found the Roscoe Wind Farm.
Oh yeah. Okay.
In Roscoe, Texas. And I picked a random telephone number. Random. It was the telephone number of the mayor. But I said, I'm going to find out. So I called the number. Well, the mayor doesn't answer it. The mayor never answers things like that. It's answered by a receptionist. And I say to the receptionist, tell the receptionist I'm checking to see how you like living in a wind farm. And she says, well, the mayor will call you back. It wasn't actually a mayor. He was a town manager or whatever.
Right.
But I said, I don't want to talk to a person who's politically involved. I want to talk to you. I think you're probably a normal person. And let's start there. And I'll call, I called a number of people. I called the library and talked to whoever answered the phone. I called the public school, a bunch of, and I said, how does it feel to live in a wind farm? And I mean, Roscoe was basically near the center of a wind farm with, I forget how many turbines, but it was over 600. And this thing was big. And she said, oh, I never thought about the fact that we live in a wind farm. I suppose we do. Well, we like it. And she asked me why I would call. And I said, I'm looking for somebody who's going to tell me that they're suffering from wind turbine syndrome, who actually has the experience of being around wind turbines all the time. And she said, where are you calling from? And I said, Vermont. She said, well, people in Vermont might suffer from wind turbine syndrome, but people in Texas don't.
Yes, exactly. No, not here.
Okay, let's go on.
Yeah.
We have a picture of a flood. This flood is in the UK, I believe. And the story is from The Guardian. And I know you're going to comment on this. More than 600 unprecedented climate disasters struck the world in 2024, says the UN. The devastating impacts of climate crisis reached new heights in 2024 when scores of unprecedented heat waves, floods, and storms across the globe, according to a report by the UN's World Meteorological Organization. I'm glad I could say meteorological. I expected to. What do you have to say, young lady?
I'm going to read a couple of things. One is kind of what I was saying earlier in the show, which is this quote, which from the article, which is, many more unprecedented events will have passed unrecorded. That's kind of my point, which is essentially you're just putting your hands over your eyes.
Yeah.
And then this professor at the Potsdam Institute for Climate in Germany, he says, ignoring reality, denying the laws of physics, and silencing scientists can only lead to harm. And ordinary people will pay the price for that.
Ordinary people, regardless of whether they believe in science or not, will pay the price.
Yeah, that's the nutcrack here.
Yeah.
And also the Secretary General said only half of the countries have adequate early warning systems.
Yeah, well, we have one in the United States,
But
or at least we did.
And and the numbers, like really thinking about the numbers of people who are gone, the 1,300 NOAA folks, and then an additional 1,000 more.
Yeah. They would get rid of the whole thing if they could.
Right, and I think a lot of I think of like regionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a note here that says the report lists 151 unprecedented extreme weather events in 2024. Unprecedented means they were worse than any ever recorded in that region.
Exactly.
That's not good. More than 800,000 people were displaced and made homeless, the highest yearly number since records began in 2008.
And that's right for climate refugees,
Yeah.
right? That's what they're talking about there. Yeah.
And I don't see where that number is going to go but up.
Of course. We're making more, with more war, we're making more refugees, and we're making more climate refugees in war too.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yeah. And the federal judges have said that this DOJ is unconstitutional, possibly, and almost certainly acting illegally. And, the Trump administration.
People never consented to their information to be used in this way.
Well, it goes beyond that. DOJ isn't a department that has representation in the cabinet. And in order for it to have that, it would have to be approved by Congress. Furthermore, it's messing around with agencies that were approved by Congress in ways that are not allowed under the Constitution. Okay, we have one more thing to do. Yeah. This is a cool picture of a cool waterway in a cool place called Colmar. Okay, and it's from the BBC. The title is the European Towns That Give Away Free Chickens. Around Easter of 2015, a small French village of Colmar started handing out free chickens to its residents in an experimental scheme to reduce food waste, so that food is being fed to the chickens. The project was started by the Waste Collection Department in a small village in northeastern France called Colmar. Now, I want to point out, it wasn't just the town that did this. The town did it in a partnership with 2 chicken farms.
Yeah.
And so, what do you have?
Oh, I love this story so much. One is one family, one hen. With the slogan, that's how the mayor was elected.
That's how he was elected.
There's so much about this that I really enjoy, but it's really just that this idea of providing the sort of equipment, providing the way, and then you give and you reduce, and people can see what their compost is doing.
Yes.
As opposed to municipal, it's.
That's right. And one of the things that I liked about this is, in order for a family to participate, get a chicken, it has to have a place to put the chicken.
Yeah.
I would guess that none of the buildings in the picture there are getting chickens, because they'd have to have some kind of small yard. The chickens' welfare is taken care of.
Yes.
The town can inspect to make sure that the chickens are happy. And I think they have a chicken translator to ask them about that. Anyway.
And you also can't eat them for 2 years in one of the towns that
but
they
you
tried
can
to
eat their eggs.
Yes, you can eat their eggs, just not them.
And they will lay eggs regardless of whether a rooster is around or not. Okay, we have the final thing, which says, have a simply magnificent week.
Yeah.
And at that, we are done, and our time has run out. You see that?
Yes.
We're done.
We're done.
So let's wave goodbye. Hope you come back next time.
Next time.